March 30th introduces a subtle shift that may feel like a small internal push against the momentum you began to feel yesterday. After a day of expanded perspective, where your thinking may have opened up toward possibility and forward movement, today brings a moment where that expansion meets something more grounded. The Sun forms a tense connection with Jupiter, and this creates a dynamic where your sense of direction begins to interact with your sense of scale. You may notice a slight internal contrast. Something may feel possible, but also slightly out of reach. A direction may feel exciting, but also require more consideration than it initially seemed. This is not a contradiction, it is a recalibration. Jupiter expands. It encourages growth, possibility, and the belief that something more is available. It helps you see beyond current limitations and imagine what could be. The Sun brings that into awareness. When they come into tension, awareness begins to question expansion, not to limit it, but to shape it. You may feel this as a need to adjust your expectations. Something you were feeling optimistic about may now require a more realistic approach. You may begin to recognize what is actually needed to move forward, rather than just what feels possible. This can feel slightly uncomfortable, not because something is wrong, but because expansion often feels easier than execution. The space between what you want and what it takes to achieve it may become more visible. At the same time, this energy supports refinement. You may begin to see how to bring your ideas into a more grounded form. Instead of thinking broadly, you may start thinking practically. What is the next step? What is actually manageable? The key dynamic of today is adjustment, not reducing your vision, but aligning it with reality. Because growth is not just about seeing what is possible, it is about shaping that possibility into something you can actually move toward. To understand the deeper psychology of March 30, we need to explore what happens when belief expands faster than identity can stabilize it. The Sun represents your sense of self, your direction, and the way you organize your experience. It is the center from which decisions are made. It defines what feels aligned, what feels purposeful, and what feels like a reflection of who you are becoming. Jupiter operates differently. Jupiter expands everything it touches. It amplifies belief, possibility, and vision. It encourages you to think beyond current limits, to imagine growth, and to trust that something more is available. When these energies are in harmony, expansion feels natural. You grow into something without resistance. Your sense of self and your belief in possibility move together. But when they form tension, as they do today, expansion begins to outpace integration. Psychologically, this creates a gap. You may feel pulled toward something larger, something more, something beyond your current position. At the same time, your sense of self may not fully feel stable within that expansion yet. This can feel like overextension, not necessarily in action, but in expectation. You may begin to notice where your vision is larger than what you are currently prepared to handle. This is not a failure of belief, it is a signal for adjustment. Jupiter often says yes, the Sun asks how. And in that question, awareness begins to refine possibility into direction. You may notice moments where your thinking shifts. What seemed simple yesterday may now appear more complex, not because it is impossible, but because you are now aware of what it actually involves. This is where recalibration begins. Instead of reducing your vision, you begin to shape it. Another important psychological effect of this transit is the awareness of limits, not as restrictions, but as structure. Limits define what is currently manageable. They show you where your energy, time, and focus can realistically be applied. Without this awareness, expansion can become scattered or unsustainable. This can also create a temporary sense of tension. Part of you may want to move forward quickly, driven by possibility. Another part may recognize the need for pacing, structure, and preparation. These two impulses can feel slightly misaligned, but this misalignment has value. It forces integration.
It asks you to bring your belief into contact with reality, not to reduce it, but to make it functional. Another subtle shift today is the relationship between confidence and awareness. Jupiter can create confidence through expansion. The Sun stabilizes that confidence through identity. When they are not fully aligned, confidence may fluctuate slightly, not because it is lost, but because it is being recalibrated. You may question something briefly, not to doubt it, but to understand it more clearly. The deeper lesson of this transit is growth through refinement, not by expanding endlessly, but by shaping expansion into something that can be sustained. Because possibility without structure remains an idea. But when belief meets awareness, it becomes direction.
On a practical level, March 30th may feel like a day where your enthusiasm meets a moment of pause. You might notice that something you felt optimistic about yesterday now requires a bit more thought. Not because it is no longer possible, but because you are beginning to see what it actually involves. This can show up as a shift in pacing. Instead of moving forward quickly, you may slow down slightly to consider details. A plan may need adjustment. An idea may need structure. A direction may need to be broken down into smaller, more manageable steps. This is not a loss of momentum. It is refinement. Another pattern that may appear today is a change in how you evaluate opportunities. You may feel drawn towards something, but also recognize where your time, energy, or resources are limited. This can create a moment where you have to choose more carefully rather than saying yes to everything. You may also notice a slight fluctuation in confidence. Something that felt clear and expansive may now feel more grounded, and with that grounding can come a brief sense of uncertainty. This is not doubt in the negative sense. It is awareness. You are seeing more of the full picture. This awareness can also improve decision-making. Instead of acting based only on excitement, you may begin to consider sustainability. What can I realistically maintain? What fits into my current direction without creating unnecessary pressure? Another noticeable pattern is the balance between optimism and realism. You may feel both at the same time. Part of you may feel inspired, ready to move forward, and open to possibility. Another part may be more cautious, wanting to ensure that your actions are aligned with what is actually achievable. This balance can feel slightly uncomfortable, but it is also productive. It helps you avoid extremes. You may also find yourself reassessing priorities. Something that seemed important may now feel less relevant, while something practical may begin to take more focus. This shift is not about losing vision, it is about aligning your energy with what can be done now. At the same time, it is important not to become overly restrictive. This energy is about adjustment, not limitation. The goal is not to reduce your expectations to the smallest possible level, but to shape them into something workable. The most helpful approach today is balanced awareness. Notice what feels possible, notice what feels realistic, and begin to bring those two closer together. Because today is not about choosing between vision and reality, it is about learning how to move forward with both. Now bring this tension between expansion and reality into your own experience, sign by sign. Today is not about giving up on what feels possible. It is about learning how to carry that possibility in a way that actually works. If you're an Aries, you may feel ready to move forward quickly, but something may slow you down just enough to think. Growth for you lies in using that pause to refine your direction rather than resisting it. Speed is useful, but direction makes it meaningful. If you're a Taurus, your sense of stability may interact with new possibilities. You may feel the pull to expand, but also the need to stay grounded. Growth comes from allowing expansion without compromising what keeps you steady. If you're a Gemini, your ideas may feel abundant, but your focus may need narrowing.
You may realize that not every idea can be pursued at once. Growth lies in choosing where to direct your attention rather than trying to hold everything at the same time. If you're a Cancer, emotional understanding may meet practical reality. You may feel ready for something, but also recognize what it requires. Growth comes from aligning your emotional readiness with practical steps. If you're a Leo, your vision may feel strong, but today may ask you to consider how it takes form. Growth lies in turning inspiration into something structured rather than leaving it as potential. If you're a Virgo, your desire for precision may help you refine something that felt too broad. Growth comes from using your attention to detail to make something more achievable rather than overcomplicating it.
If you are Libra, relationships or decisions may require balance between what feels right and what is realistic. Growth lies in finding alignment between your values and your actions. If you are a Scorpio, your depth of focus may help you recognize what truly matters within a larger vision. Growth comes from directing your intensity toward what is sustainable rather than everything at once. If you are a Sagittarius, this energy may feel like a check on your natural expansion. Growth lies in grounding your vision just enough that it becomes something you can actually pursue. If you are a Capricorn, your sense of structure may help you bring clarity to something that felt too open. Growth comes from using discipline as a tool for progress rather than limitation. If you are an Aquarius, your perspective may remain expansive, but today may ask you to consider practical application. Growth lies in turning ideas into something actionable. And if you are a Pisces, your sense of possibility may feel strong, but you may begin to see what it requires. Growth comes from aligning your vision with steps that can be taken in the present. As we close March 30, notice the space between what feels possible and what is ready to take form. Over the past few days, your perspective may have expanded. You may have seen new directions, felt a sense of movement, or recognized that something more is available to you. That expansion created energy, openness, and a sense of forward momentum. Today did not take that away. It shaped it. You may have noticed a moment where something needed adjustment, where an idea required more thought, where a direction asked for structure rather than just belief. This is not resistance, it is refinement, because possibility, on its own, can move in many directions, but direction requires definition. You may have felt a subtle shift today, a sense that something needs to be approached differently, a recognition that what you want is still valid, but the way you move toward it matters. A moment where excitement meets awareness. That meeting point is important because it is where growth becomes sustainable. Without awareness, expansion can become overwhelming. Without expansion, awareness can become limiting. But when the two meet, something more balanced begins to form. Tonight, you might reflect on something simple. What still feels possible to me? What part of that needs to be adjusted to become real? And what is one step that connects those two? These questions are not about reducing your vision. They are about grounding it. Because what you see for yourself does not need to be smaller, it needs to be clearer. And when clarity meets possibility, movement becomes something you can maintain, not just for a moment, but over time.